Become a sponsor today by visiting patreon.com/psychologyis.
So this book here, which you and your wife Frances edited, is one of my favorites. And I'll bring up the topic of transpersonal psychology in a moment. But I would say anyone who's interested in the topic of transpersonal psychology must have this book, Paths Beyond Ego, this anthology with a bunch of incredibly powerful intellectuals and just intelligent people. So there's two quotes from one of your chapters in this book, which is called Hidden Wisdom, that are relevant to what we're talking about here. So, you talk about how Western philosophers usually assume that intellectual training and analysis alone provide the royal road to understanding. But that other traditions, and including transpersonal psychology, they emphasize that, quote, while intellectual training is necessary, by itself, it is not sufficient for deep understanding. And then the other quote I wanted to read is from the same chapter here, talking exactly about what you're saying, about all these ancient traditions and that there is an experiential component that's crucial. And so you wrote that unless this wisdom is directly experienced in succeeding generations, traditions easily ossify into mere dogma. And I just think that is spot on. And again, related to what you're saying, because you're talking about experiencing for yourself what these transcendent technologies or technologies of transcendence can bring about in a person. And that's what I think is so unattractive about religion to many people, especially who identify as scientific, is that they become dogmatic and that they're always, pointing to these revelatory scriptures that are, perfect, and there's just a lack of saying, go ahead, see for yourself. And the see for yourself element of it is really important, and that it's experiential.
Yeah, well said, Nick. I couldn't agree with you more. And in fact, we tend to divide religions as, there's Islam, there's Christianity, there's Confucianism, Taoism, etc., etc. But there's an even more important division within each tradition, and that is there's the what's usually thought of as the conventional religion, which is, in psychological terms, which centers around the mythic literal stage of development and focuses on a narrative, basically. And at the literal mythic level of faith development, basically, if you believe the narrative, the story, you're saved, and if you don't, you're damned. But there's a very different kind of religion, which is contemplative, which is based on training and transforming the mind.
Yes.
And that, with the narrative, you have to believe to be saved. With the contemplative, transformative, the invitation is, see for yourself.
Yes.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Do the practices, cultivate the experiences, see if the claims are true, and find the ones that are useful for you and run with them.
Exactly.
You don't have to believe anything. Everything's open for testing. There's a
Right.
laboratory. It's a laboratory experiment. The laboratory just happens to be us.
Exactly. So I want to know about how you got involved in transpersonal psychology. And I'll just say for listeners that there have been some major waves of perspectives in the history of psychology. And each of them has a different view of both what the subject matter of psychology should be and how we should approach studying it. And so there have been, psychoanalysis, like with Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. There's been behaviorism and humanistic psychology. And transpersonal psychology has been, it was founded around 1968 or so. You are one of the pioneers of the field. And I feel like, honestly, transpersonal psychology is responsible for being some of the first people to systematically investigate contemplative practices. and including meditation and yoga and even martial arts and psychedelic experiences and just altered states of consciousness. And now it's very mainstream. It's very popular. Meditation is one of the hottest research topics that there is. So I think that, the pioneers of transpersonal psychology have something to be proud of because they were really the ones who were forward thinking enough to recognize that this is directly relevant to psychology. And there is incredible potential for therapeutic interventions that are based on these contemplative practices.